Hey everyone, welcome to the Mass Construction Show. I'm your host, Joe Kelly, and this is a podcast about all things construction in Massachusetts and beyond. Today's show is brought to you by Central, commercial carpenters and supporters of our conversations. I'm very excited to say Central is back for a second year. They re-upped and said they want to support our show for another year. I think that's fantastic. And if you're a listener of this show or watcher of the show, it's fantastic for you too. It allows me to be able to continue to commit time and create the content and have these conversations that we continue to have. And it makes us better. It makes me better. It makes you better for listening, whether it gives us creative ideas or just learning facts that we need to know to do our jobs better. And all that is, made possible by Central stepping up and helping us make this thing possible. So if you enjoy the show, if you appreciate getting better, maybe say thanks to Central in some way on social, or if you see Chris or Kevin or Dave or any of the guys from Central, just say thanks for the fact that they support this show. Now, enjoy the show. Okay, recently, a few things I posted on Instagram got some people talking, got some interaction. One of them was a photo from Blue Collar Bobby. Follow him on Instagram. He's putting out some great content. Dan Creed kind of turned me on to him from Walsh Brothers, and I like his content. It's a good way to learn. He's got some interesting stuff. He's funny. He also has a YouTube show and that streams on Twitch as well. It's called Dope and Pipe, which I think is a great name for a sprinkler shredder show. And he posted a picture of a bank of PRVs, pressure reducing valves, on a fire protection system. And part of that picture had the main coming up through the floor, and the first 18 inches was wrapped in insulation. So the question I asked was, why is that 18 inches of pipe wrapped? And I got a lot of responses and only one correct. So John Grace, take a bow. But a couple people that did take guesses also said, hey, we'd like to know, or could you tell me, I'd like to know more about this, I think is what basically they were saying. So here's a chance to talk a little bit more about what that insulation is for on the pipe. And I think the best place to start is with ratings, fire ratings, because a lot of people said, oh, is it in lieu of fire caulking and insulation? So that's close. It's a very close answer. But when it comes to penetrations on rated walls, whatever that rating may be, there is 4 ratings that we'll talk about today. Fire rating, so F rating, which is fire rating, T rating, which is temperature, L rating, which is smoke, or think leakage, that's what that stands for, and then there's a W rating, which is for water. Think penetration going through the floor in a mechanical room, and if there's a leak in the mechanical room, you don't want that water leaking down to the floor below. Or a lot of times you're going to W rating where like the curtain wall and the slab edge meet, there's a gap there, they don't touch, the slab edge and that gap, so you stuff it and spray it with fire stopping. That would get a W rating. So if you had a flood on the floor, it doesn't run all the way down the building. So F rating, T rating, L rating, W rating, those are the 4 types of ratings. Now, you have a fire rated wall, not a smoke wall, it's a fire rated wall. Most penetrations need an F rating. When you have a floor or ceiling, however you want to look at it, you have a penetration going through that floor, you need an F rating and a T rating. Now, you might say, okay, I've done how many penetrations where the plumbing goes through the floor or the conduit goes through the floor, and I fire stop it and I don't put any insulation around it. I don't know what you're talking about. The big thing is there's 3 exceptions with floors and ceilings for the T rating. It says you don't need a T rating. The biggest one, there's a couple of minor ones, but the biggest one is if it's enclosed in a cavity, I think is what they use. This is loosely, right? So if you're within a wall and you're going floor to floor and it's enclosed, you do not need that T rating. So you get an exception for the T rating when it's enclosed in a wall or ceiling or what have you. But in this case, it's a mechanical room, is that bank of PRVs. So it's coming up, it's not enclosed in a wall, it's not enclosed in a ceiling. So now you need a T rating. So that's the deal with that case. That's the deal with T ratings. And let me just talk a little bit about fire. Is obvious, right? It's stopping the spread of fire through the wall with an F rating. A T rating is temperature, because you don't want that pipe heating up and that heat transferring to the other side of the wall and causing a fire either on the other side of the wall or floor to floor. You don't typically see a T rating on the wall, so it's a bad example, but floor to floor, you don't want the pipe heating up, going through and causing a fire on the next floor, because you have that rating there. And it makes sense, right? All the heat is going to rise, it's going to heat up that pipe, and then it's going to travel up to the floor. So that's a little bit about ratings F, T, L, and W. F, T, and L are required by the code. The IBC, you go into the building code, it spells out where you need what. The W rating is never required by the code, unless there's some new addition that is requiring it in some places. But I tell you about the W rating because an architect or an engineer, might specify that because of water reasons. They want to make sure they control it. So architect engineer might specify whether a thing needs a W rating or not, but the building code decides whether you need an F, T, or L rating, or a combination of F, T, and L ratings on your penetration. So if you guys are local, you want to learn a little bit more about that, we have a whole class on fire stopping. It explains those things. We show you the cut sheets, let you do a little exercise and figure out whether the sheet meets the code requirements for the penetration. It's a good way to kind of learn about how to read these sheets and do fire stopping properly. If you're not local, or class isn't for you, there is a woman, Sharron Halpert. I believe Sharron's out of New York. You can find her on LinkedIn. I will put her info in the show notes, and you can look her up, but she's really a fire stopping enthusiast. She loves fire stopping. She creates a lot of video content, and I think she would be a great person to follow and reach out to if you want to learn more about fire stopping. Another thing. So recently I posted a video from Michael Pollan, who is a food author. You might know him. What is it? Carnivore's Dilemma. A couple good books that he writes on topics of food. I want to think he might even done something on psychedelics recently, if I'm not mistaken. But I posted a video of his where he was talking about a particular pesticide that McDonald's potatoes had used on them. The farmers were using this pesticide to get like pristine looking potatoes. It was clearly a very nasty product. One of the followers reached out and sent me a little link basically saying that, McDonald's doesn't use that anymore. That's, not really good information. So great. I want to make sure everybody knows if I'm sharing information that is incorrect, I want to make sure I correct the record. I felt comfortable because it was Michael Pollan, and he's someone that I trust and seems to do a fair amount of research. It wasn't just somebody out there winging stuff. And it looked pretty nasty with the stuff they were using. They no longer use that. They stopped, I believe, in 2009, it said. And I think the Bayer, the manufacturer of that product, ceases to use that pesticide anymore because it probably indeed was pretty darn nasty. Now, I don't know what McDonald's uses now, or what farmers that farm for McDonald's use now on their pesticides. I mean, on their potatoes. I looked around, you see conflicting information about what's used and pesticide overspray and all this stuff. So it's hard to say. I don't know what they use now on their product, but I thought it was a good time to talk a little bit about kind of the shell game that happens with chemicals. Okay, because you can stop using one thing because it's bad and everyone finds out it's bad and say, okay, well, we're not going to use that anymore. But then they shift and they just use something that's equally as bad. Not saying that that's what McDonald's does at all. But I want to read from a book, Ester Generation, real quick. And it's a section that's talking about water bottles. Oh, not water bottles, BPA. We see all this stuff, BPA free, BPA free. Okay, they found out that BPA was a pretty nasty chemical and was not good for us, was not good for the environment. So now everyone ran around and says, we're producing BPA-free plastic. So if you buy a BPA-free bottle, it might be made from BPS, bisphenol S, or something similar. Veiled versions of BPA are correspondingly unhealthy. Here is a quote, for instance, from the Environmental Science and Technology Journal. Quote, BPAF, BPB, BPF, and BPS have been shown to exhibit anti-androgenic and or estrogenic activities similar to or even greater than that of BPA, end quote. So what he's talking about there is, okay, there was this chemical, oh, that's bad. They now just use something slightly different. It's not BPA, and in some cases, it is equally as bad as BPA, and in some cases, it's worse than BPA. So you're running around thinking you're doing the right thing. Okay, I've got this BPA-free water bottle, and it could be worse than the one you were using before. It's a little bit of a shell game that goes on. It's important to know, and it's important to, frankly, not trust, I guess, companies, and not trust them, but be critical. Look into things when we're talking about our health, right? We're talking about our health, we're talking about chemicals we're putting in our body, we're talking about chemicals that we're putting in an environment that if it's not good for us, and it's certainly not good for animals. So we want to think closely about it. So I appreciate that follower. I'm not using his name because I didn't get the okay, but I appreciate that follower reaching out and saying, hey, this isn't good information anymore. I want to make sure I correct the record. My apologies for not doing the due diligence there on that front. But also, it doesn't mean that we still don't need to take a critical look on what we're putting in our body. So that's it for today. Know that recently we've had some major changes to the fire code, soon to have major changes to the energy code, and soon to have major changes to the building code, all in Massachusetts. So if you're interested in that, let us know, and we will continue to put out a little more content to help keep you up to date with all these code changes coming your way. And like I said, reach out to me and to Central. Let us know that you appreciate them or things you want us to work on here at the Mass Construction Show. And follow Blue Collar Bobby and Sharron Halpert. They both have some great information. Sharron, you most likely find on LinkedIn. Bobby, you'll most likely find over on Instagram. Take care, guys.